One, you turned in the right channel, Smash Mouth Sports. I'm your host, as always, Preston Bailey. With me is Cam Vieira. Now, we are going to talk some college football. Cam, are you ready to talk college football?
Let's do it.
You sound less excited than you did when we were talking about Cheez-Its, but we'll get into it. A lot of people were excited about the Cheez-It Bowl. We're going to talk about the Final Four. We're going to talk about the playoffs. We're going to lump both games into one. We're going to talk about Notre Dame and Alabama. We've got the fourth-ranked Notre Dame. They're 10-1 against 11-0 Alabama, the Fighting Irish. No, don't get me started on when they're going to change that name because I know that's it. I'm Irish. I could care less if they have it or keep the name. Doesn't matter. Alabama, they were 20-point favorites. Now they're 19.5 favorites. 65.5 over and under. I expect Mac Jones, Najee Harris, and the group, Devontae Smith, who's been phenomenal as well, to absolutely destroy Notre Dame. What are your thoughts on that, Cam?
No, I agree. You just have to go simply off of history. And Notre Dame now, for about 8-9 years since the Manti Te'o team, has got themselves into these big games, and they get curb stomped every time.
You're right. They get curb stomped. And sadly, when I think about Notre Dame, I don't think about how great they were 70 years ago, in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 50s, 70, 80, 90, right. All this great stuff, right? It's a great program. It's a great school. Absolutely. However, it's not a football powerhouse in the sense of look, we have to look at it realistically, okay? Notre Dame is limited. Notre Dame cannot recruit the same players that go to Alabama, Ohio State, or Clemson. They just can't. Their grade standards for Notre Dame is too high. So Notre Dame, of all the elite schools, so on and so forth, the Ivy League, the button-up schools, they do as well as they can do. But if they ever want to seriously compete, and I know a lot of Notre Dame fans are like, well, they're number 4. Yeah, number 4. Do they deserve to be number 4? No. If their name was not Notre Dame, they would not be number 4.
They would not be number 4.
Period. It's period, plain. They would not be number 4. Okay, Notre Dame, I know they'll
has the biggest following of anyone, right?
The biggest following, so forth. So Alabama is going to absolutely steamroll Notre Dame. The over-under is 65.5. If I were to just pick a number out of thin air, I would say 45-20. 45-20 would be my just off the cuff 45-20. I expect Alabama to steamroll Notre Dame. Notre Dame, I'm going to bring up their last game here. Hopefully we don't get a bunch of ads that pop in. So Notre Dame has beaten, they beat USF. They beat Duke. They beat a few other nobodies here. Oh, yeah. They beat Clemson, which we forgot about when they didn't have Trevor Lawrence.
Right, when Trevor Lawrence had COVID, correct.
Right. Okay, so that's that. But here we go. But they played them last week. This is what I was looking for. They played them last week, and they lost 34-10 to Clemson with Trevor Lawrence, correct?
Correct.
So my question to you, Cam, other than all that, why is Notre Dame allowed to play in this game?
It's business. There's two college sports programs that are truly polarizing, and they're one of them. It's them and Duke basketball. Those are two of the biggest names in American sports, collegiate and professional. And Notre Dame...
You miss one problem there. Duke wins.
That's true.
Duke is an elite academic program, similar to Notre Dame, but they're also an elite athletic program. Notre Dame is not an elite athletic program. I'm sorry to hurt people's feelings, but you can't recruit the same guys that Clemson and Alabama. The guys that get a 14 on the Wonderlic score, barely pass their SATs, those guys are not going to Notre Dame. Those guys, guys that run 4.340s, the guys that can run in the building, jump into the building, they're not going to Notre Dame. They've got to take, they're competing against, say, a Duke, if you will, like a Duke. And Duke basketball, the difference with Duke basketball, they're an elite school.
Correct. But it's a business. Condoleezza Rice and all of them on the selection committee who decide these games, they know Notre Dame is going to get them eyeballs and get them ratings because no matter how much you love or hate Notre Dame, they're polarizing, and you're going to watch to either root for them or root against them because you hate them or you love them, or you hate their fans or you love their fans. They are the most polarizing team in college football. It's a business thing. They're a good team, but they're not one of the 4 best teams in the country. You can't convince me that. Every time they get here, they get curb stomped.
Right. I don't even think they're a top 10 team. I'm looking at the top 10 teams, okay? We've got Texas A&M at 8-1. They deserve a shot. Oklahoma at 8-2. I know a lot of people have been clamoring for Florida. They're like, oh, well, Florida's 8-3. Well, they are 8-3, but they also play in the SEC. They play in the toughest conference. And then, of course, you have Cincinnati. Honestly, look, I know Cincinnati has had probably the easiest schedule of anybody. They're 9-0. I know nobody would watch that game, okay, except for maybe me and you.
It's about who deserves it.
I'm telling you, I would rather see Cincinnati in this game than Notre Dame. I'm sorry, not sorry. I'd rather see Cincinnati because why do I want to see Notre Dame get steamrolled? That's what I want to know.
You don't.
You don't.
You don't.
You absolutely don't.
Even if you hate Notre Dame, you want the teams, the polarizing teams in sports, the Yankees, the Lakers, the Patriots, well, not anymore, the Cowboys. You want to see them lose in a heartbreaking fashion. You don't want to see them get crushed. You want to see them lose a close game. That's what makes it entertaining. You want their fans devastated.
Absolutely. And you got to like and subscribe to the channel. Now, here is the real question, Cam. I'm thinking about tagging this. Notre Dame is trash. Don't change my mind. What are your thoughts on that tag for Notre Dame? Notre Dame is trash. Don't change my mind. I'm going to write this down. Notre Dame is trash.
Doing a spin on the Steven Crowder meme.
Yeah, is that you think Notre Dame would get angry? You think Notre Dame would want to burn down the studio if I said that?
All that sidewalk alumni, yeah, absolutely.
Or do you think they would? The problem with Notre Dame is they can't get out of their own way. They still look at themselves as elite. Look, I get it. They go to the campus. The campus is nice. They got the nice helmets and the jerseys and all. Who cares if they're on TV? Who cares if they have their own? Everybody has their own network. I've got my own network. We've got our own network. It's not a big deal. We can watch this game. We can watch their games anywhere. Who cares?
Who's the biggest NFL star to come out of Notre Dame in the last 20 years?
Well, the guy that comes out of my mind, besides Notre Dame, and he is a middle-of-the-road NFL player, the last guy that comes out, Hall of Famer, is Tim Brown.
Correct.
And of course, Mike Golick, senior on ESPN for 30 years. Those are the two guys.
And Joe Montana, right.
Well, you said 20 years. I mean, those guys are loose at 30 years.
Correct.
Joe Montana, you're talking about 40 years ago with Joe Montana.
Right. We can go all the way back to Newt Rockne if we want to, yeah.
Right, yeah, you're going to the Wayback Machine. So, yeah. So, like and subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned.